In terms of oxygen, which is the issue that seems to be of grave concern, I read a report from the CMO explaining what the third wave could look like. I won't give any details of it. The CMO is in the best place to give you details on the report, but I'm certain that you would have seen some of the projections. And my understanding is that that projection would have been shared. There would have been understanding reached. And I wished here to say that our partners in providing us with oxygen, IGL, with as much challenges that we have had, given the size of their plant and the unpredictable nature of the spikes, and indeed of the supplies, that they have been very faithful to us in trying to source supplies, even when their own supply chain has been disrupted. So, the question about planning for the spike and planning for the supply, it's a very tricky one, because even in countries where they have plants with massive capacities and more resources than us, I'm seeing Florida, I'm seeing Alabama, I'm seeing other states, I'm seeing other countries, where even those rich countries and rich states have these challenges. In fact, I'm reliably told that there was a disruption in the supply chain for oxygen for Jamaica. Not that we were having an oversupply, that's not the case. We were right at the brink. But at the brink, can you imagine, there comes a disruption in the supply chain. I don't want to get too much into what that disruption is, but obviously the suppliers there had to use the resources that they have, which would have come to Jamaica, to supply the needs in their own country. And our partners, IGL, had to find other suppliers. They did so in Trinidad, and I want to thank the government of Trinidad. We have reached out to the government of Trinidad to have a firm relationship with them in terms of becoming suppliers for us, given that we have this situation in our normal course. So from a government-to-government perspective, we're tying that down. So from that perspective, I think there is a movement to blame and argue and quarrel. That is important, because we need to get at the root cause of problems. So that's not saying that we shouldn't do that, but I'm saying that in the midst of a pandemic, what is important is that everyone who was involved worked very hard, so that when there is this force majeure, this act of God, this unforeseen circumstances where the supply chain was disrupted, in a day, we were able to make connections, and then in the following day, you would have seen the videos where our port workers, our customs, our security forces worked overtime to have the containers come here with oxygen. Now, that's not a solution long-term to the problem. It just stops the gap. But the government is working behind the scenes with our partners to ensure that we can have a more robust solution. And that is the logistics involved in that is immense. It requires greater coordination with the Ministry of Health and the partners in terms of analyzing the numbers, greater coordination with shipping. But then there is the long-term problem. And the long-term problem is, how do we size the plant that we have to meet the demand going forward? And I think the suppliers want to have a better understanding of what will our supplies be, let's say, in the next year. Would it justify an investment in increasing the size of their plant? And then from our point, we need to find other sources. Now, I want us to be clear. It doesn't really matter which source you find. Once they need their oxygen, then you are at peril. So there are other solutions too, which we are exploring. Well, not exploring, we are on that path in terms of increasing the number of oxygen concentrators. I received a report from the CMO of what is on order, what they have spec'd out to go into procurement. And I personally, through sources overseas, working through our ambassador and through our consul general in New York, we have, I would say at this point, secured some close to 80, 90 oxygen concentrators. So in addition to what the Ministry of Health is procuring and what we're getting from support from the diaspora, we should be able to have a good amount of concentrators in the system. Now, you will know that the concentrators don't solve the problem fully. The concentrators are good for persons who have, mild but not serious COVID symptoms. People who have serious symptoms would still need to rely on that bulk high-flow nasal oxygen. But certainly, you wouldn't have this pressure on the system for persons who are mild. So we are activated. And I'm not telling you that the system is perfect, but for those who would want to present a fatalistic view, that is absolutely not the case. And I think for those whose, it would seem to me, deliberate intent is to spread fear and to diminish confidence in our system in the time of a pandemic, shame on you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Thank you to members of the public, members of the